What's your address? Okay, let me know what he's wearing. Santa Claus.
On Christmas Eve 2008, the Ortega family gathered at their home in Covina, California to celebrate the holiday season. When midnight drew near, the doorbell rang. Expecting another guest, they opened the door to find a man in a Santa Claus suit standing on the doorstep with a large gift. Little did they know, he didn't bring laughter or good cheer. Before anyone could react, Santa pulled out a gun and opened fire. Chaos erupted. Family members scrambled to escape, ducking behind furniture, shielding children, and running for their lives. As if the gunfire wasn't enough, the intruder unwrapped the gift, releasing a liquid that quickly engulfed the house in flames. Smoke filled the air, forcing some to flee through windows, while others were trapped inside. By the time firefighters arrived, the once joyous home was reduced to ashes. 9 members of the Ortega family died that night. The tragedy had gone down in history as one of the most devastating mass murders ever committed. Was this a random act of a deranged psychopath, or a cold, calculated plan of a cruel monster? Before diving into this heartbreaking case, don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with more true crime stories from us. Covina, a quiet suburban city about 22 miles east of Los Angeles, was home to Joseph and Alicia Ortega. Married for 53 years, they were the heart and soul of their tight-knit family, and their home became the center of warm gatherings. Papa Joe and Alice, as they were lovingly called, had 5 children: Sylvia, James, Charles, Letitia, and Alicia. Christmas Eve was a special time for the Ortegas. It was a tradition that brought together their children, grandchildren, in-laws, and close friends to celebrate the holiday season. Joseph and Alicia had worked hard to build a life of success and stability after immigrating to the U.S. They fulfilled the American dream by opening a thriving paint shop on Virginia Avenue in Baldwin Park. Over the years, their family grew, and so did their traditions. December 24, 2008 was no different. More than 25 family members gathered at their home on Knowlcrest Drive, sharing a festive dinner, playing Texas Hold'em poker, relaxing by the pool, and enjoying video games. Laughter filled the air as they looked forward to Christmas morning. At the moment, only a few 911 operators and police officers were on duty. After all, it was the holidays, and Covina was known for having one of the lowest crime rates in the area. Everything seemed calm until 10 minutes before midnight. Suddenly, every phone in the dispatch center rang at once. Operators scrambled to answer. It seemed like everyone on East Knowlcrest Drive was calling at the same time. Reports flooded in. An explosion, a raging fire, and terrified people running through the streets. But one woman had something even more urgent. Her frantic voice cut through the chaos as she begged for more help, her words barely comprehensible through the sheer panic.
My daughter's been shot.
I let the officers know. The officers are making sure it's safe, but a paramedic
I need a bandage, please. She was shot in the face on the side and she's bleeding. Please come immediately. I don't know who else is alive.
I know, ma'am. Just stay on the phone with me, okay?
My whole family, there's 30 people, 25 people.
I know.
When emergency responders arrived at the scene, they were overwhelmed by the true intensity of the situation. Flames engulfed every window, consuming the house in an unstoppable blaze. Fire roared through the structure, lighting up the night sky like an inferno straight from hell. For hours, more than 80 firefighters battled the flames, struggling to bring them under control. Meanwhile, police and paramedics fought their own battle, trying to rescue as many people as they could from the devastation. Once the survivors were safe, Police Lieutenant Tim Doonan began questioning them, trying to comprehend what had happened. The terrified witnesses all told the same chilling story. A man dressed as Santa Claus had walked into the house and started shooting everyone in sight. A neighbor and close family friend, who had luckily left the party just moments before the massacre, reported seeing something suspicious: a small blue car. It sped away from the house, disappearing into the night. It was going way too fast with its lights off. So weird, the neighbor recalled. Before Lieutenant Doonan could process the information, another grim update arrived from the paramedics. 9 dead, 3 injured, all were members of the Ortega family. Among the wounded was an 8-year-old girl, shot in the head, still fighting for her life. As if the tragedy wasn't horrifying enough, another urgent call came through. Brad Pardo, a distant relative of the Ortegas, who hadn't been at the party, had just reported another shocking discovery. Returning home late from his own Christmas celebration, he walked through his front door and found a nightmare waiting for him. A pistol lay on the ground, bullet holes riddled the living room walls. And, worst of all, his brother, Bruce Pardo, was dead, lying in a pool of blood with another gun still in his hand. What had happened inside that house? The next day, Lieutenant Doonan turned his focus to the Ortega's neighbors. With the surviving family members still recovering in the hospital, he hoped someone else might shed light on how a man dressed as Santa had entered the home without anyone raising an alarm. That's when he heard about a man named Patrick who lived nearby. Every other year, Patrick had dressed as Santa for the Ortega family, handing out presents to the children. At first, it seemed like a promising lead, but Doonan quickly ruled it out. Patrick had moved away. It was nothing more than a red herring. Yet the information confirmed one chilling fact. This wasn't a random attack. The killer knew the Ortegas. He knew their traditions. He knew the Christmas Eve gathering would last until around midnight, when the kids would start getting tired. And most disturbingly, he knew that Santa Claus was always welcome at their door. The realization hit hard. This was personal, and the person behind the massacre had planned every detail and used their cherished traditions against them. After speaking with neighbors, Lieutenant Doonan turned his attention to the charred remains of the Ortega family home. The scene was devastating, but one detail stood out immediately. Dozens of bullet casings scattered among the ashes. The rounds were identical to those found at Brad Pardo's house the previous night. Sensing a connection, Doonan left Knollcrest Drive and made his way to the second crime scene to speak with Brad himself. At first glance, the house looked like it had been the site of a shootout between Brad's brother, Bruce, and an unknown assailant. But when questioned about possible enemies, Brad was quick to deny. He described Bruce as upbeat, charismatic, and easygoing, with an impressive career. Fresh out of college, Bruce landed a high-paying job at the prestigious Jet Propulsion Laboratory, earning $122,000 a year. But when the conversation shifted to Bruce's personal life, Brad's demeanor changed. He flinched and reluctantly revealed that Bruce had finalized a divorce just a week earlier. His ex-wife's name was Sylvia Ortiz. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a chilling connection. Sylvia Ortiz's maiden name was Ortega. She was part of the Ortega family that had been slaughtered on Christmas Eve. When Doonan attempted to confirm Sylvia's whereabouts over the radio, another call came through that would change everything. Police had just located the blue Dodge Caliber that the Ortega's neighbors had reported seeing the night before. But what they found inside made their blood run cold. A Santa suit with hundreds, if not thousands, of rounds of ammunition and a flare hanging ominously. As officers pulled the Santa suit from the car, it triggered the flare's string. In an instant, sparks flew. Officers ran for cover just seconds before the ammunition bag and Santa suit burst into flames. And then the entire car exploded. Bullets popped and whizzed in every direction, black powder ignited, and flames engulfed the vehicle. The inferno consumed everything inside, erasing crucial evidence. Luckily, no one was injured in the blast, but the destruction was complete. Whatever secrets the car held were now lost forever. Who could hate this family so much? Who would unleash such horror on Christmas Eve, then drive 30 miles north to murder the ex-husband and finally booby-trap his getaway car to kill anyone who might find it? The weight of the investigation was heavy, but that afternoon, finally, some good news emerged. Katrina, the 8-year-old girl who had been shot in the head, miraculously survived. The bullet had entered through the side of her mouth. It was very rare for someone to survive such an injury. But against all odds, Katrina walked away from that fatal wound, a tiny beacon of hope amid an ocean of tragedy. At this point, detectives turned their focus to Leticia Józef-Polski, the mother of young Katrina. She hadn't left her daughter's bedside since they arrived at the hospital. When Lieutenant Doonan approached her with questions, he asked how Bruce's death and the massacre on Knollcrest Drive might be connected. But Leticia, overwhelmed with grief and frustration, cut him off. "You've got it all wrong." According to Letitia, Bruce Pardo wasn't just connected to the crime. He was the one responsible. Disguised in a Santa suit, he was the very person who brought terror and destruction into their home. The revelation hit like a bombshell. Bruce had no prior criminal record, was well-educated, and had once worked for a prestigious employer. On paper, he didn't fit the profile of a mass murderer. He was the last person anyone would suspect. To those who knew him, Bruce was a friendly neighbor, a devoted family man, and an upstanding citizen. But Letitia saw something different. He wasn't a victim, he was a psychopath, she told investigators. Then, she opened up about her sister, Sylvia Ortega, and the tragedies she had endured long before that fateful Christmas Eve. Sylvia's first marriage had ended in heartbreak. Her husband died in a car accident when she was pregnant with their second child. The trauma of that loss was overwhelming, especially since Sylvia had been behind the wheel. Letitia, just 16 at the time, recalled how devastating it had been for the entire family. Years later, Sylvia moved back to Covina to be closer to them, hoping to rebuild her life. That's when she was introduced to Bruce Pardo through a mutual friend. At first, Bruce seemed perfect. He was a brilliant engineer, a rocket scientist. More importantly, he appeared to love Sylvia's children as if they were his own, eager to take on the role of a father figure. In 2006, the couple married and moved in together. From the outside, everything looked wonderful. But cracks soon began to appear. It started with an accident. Bruce suffered a serious knee injury that required surgery, and it changed him in ways no one had expected. The once active, fun-loving man Sylvia had fallen for became withdrawn and irritable. He put on weight, lost interest in socializing, and shut himself off from the world. By March, Sylvia had finally had enough. She packed her things and left, moving out to start fresh. Their divorce was finalized on December 17th, just 1 week before the massacre. The court ordered Bruce to pay Sylvia $10,000 in a settlement and $1,800 per month in spousal support. Adding to his misery, he lost his job at ITT Electronic Systems after being caught falsifying his work hours. No one could imagine the end of their troubled marriage had set the stage for something far more horrifying. While Letitia answered Lieutenant Dunan's questions, more family members and neighbors arrived at the hospital to support her wounded daughter. Among them were Amanda and Sal, the 6-year-old and 19-year-old children of Leticia's sister, Sylvia Ortega. Both had miraculously escaped the fiery inferno that claimed the lives of their loved ones. Now, standing in the sterile hospital corridor, they had just learned the heartbreaking truth. Their mother's body had been found in the rubble. With heavy hearts, they reunited with Leticia, Katrina, and what little remained of their shattered family. But there was little time to grieve. With the killer still on the loose, Lieutenant Dunan needed their testimonies. After allowing them a moment to gather themselves, he pulled Leticia and Sal aside for questioning.
At about 11:30 at night, my daughter started saying that Santa was outside. You know, in the past, we had Santa come around the neighbor and bring toys. So I got up from the living room and went and grabbed my video camera in the dining room and the other room.
Santa's arrival wasn't a surprise. Carrying a red sack of presents on his back and pulling a large package on a trolley behind him, he knew he would be welcomed. The family had seen Santa at their door before. Why would this time be any different? Sal watched from across the room as the man in red stepped inside. 8-year-old Katrina, Leticia's daughter, ran toward Santa with wide-eyed excitement, expecting a hug or maybe a small gift. But in a single, horrifying moment, Santa did the unthinkable. He pulled out 2 pistols from his pockets and fired point-blank at little Katrina. Then he turned around and stormed through the home, firing at family members without mercy. Panic erupted. People screamed, shouted, and scrambled to escape. The man, now inside, fired at anyone in his way. Katrina's uncles, Charles and James, were both shot, but fought through their injuries to try and stop him. One bullet grazed a teenager's cheek, while another struck someone in the back. The house had become a battleground.
I don't have anything in my head but leave. I broke through a window, I punched it with my hand, I shattered it, I jumped through it to get out of the house. It's really the number one thing I regret in my life, is just the I would have turned the other way, done something.
The horror didn't stop with the gunfire. Santa unwrapped the large package he had brought with him. Inside was a homemade flamethrower. An explosion erupted, and within moments, the fire spread rapidly, engulfing the home in a raging inferno. The blaze consumed everything in its path, reducing the entire house to ashes. Firefighters battled the flames for hours, but by the time the fire was extinguished, the damage was catastrophic. The fierce flame not only consumed the house but also destroyed critical evidence. Many of the victims were burned beyond recognition, forcing investigators to rely on dental records to identify their remains. In the chaos, Leticia did the only thing she could. She grabbed the kids and ran. In a desperate bid, she leaped from a second-story window as gunfire erupted through the home. Her daughter had been shot in the face, but miraculously, they escaped along with a few nieces and nephews. But for those left inside, there was no way out. They were either killed by the bullets or the explosion that followed. By the time the nightmare ended, 9 lives were lost. Some victims died from gunshot wounds, others perished in the fire, and a few suffered a tragic combination of both. Outside, the horror continued to unfold. Leticia, desperate to save her daughter, frantically called 911, pleading for medical help. Meanwhile, neighbors opened their doors to the panicked survivors, offering them shelter and comfort. Everybody huddled together, shaken and in shock. No one knew the full extent of the tragedy yet. Many were still searching, calling their loved ones over and over, not realizing they were among the only ones who had made it out alive. As the grim Christmas day drew to a close, Lieutenant Doonan and his officers were exhausted. But there was still one more place to check. Earlier that day, Doonan had requested a warrant to search Bruce Pardo's home in Montrose, following the discovery of his body. When it was finally approved, he wasted no time heading there. Inside the house, everything seemed ordinary. No immediate signs of violence. But as Doonan was leaving, something caught his eye. A shed in the backyard. He forced the door open, and what he found inside confirmed their worst fears. It was a treasure trove of evidence, a makeshift bomb factory. Laying around were empty boxes from 5 semi-automatic handguns, 2 shotguns, stacks of ammunition, black powder, and a large container of high-octane fuel. Doonan didn't need to look any further. Bruce Pardo was the killer. The man who had once been a devoted husband and loving stepfather had planned every step of this massacre. He meant to destroy the entire Ortega family and had nearly succeeded. Lieutenant Doonan was still waiting for the coroner's final report, not just on the 9 Ortega family members who perished, but also on Bruce Pardo's body. However, after piecing together the accounts from Sal and Leticia and examining the wreckage of the house, he now had enough information to reconstruct the horrifying timeline of events. Doonan concluded that Pardo left his home around 10:45 p.m., dressed in his custom Santa suit, and drove to Covina with a sinister plan in mind. He knew Sylvia's entire family would be there, celebrating late into the night as they did every year. He also knew their neighbor had a tradition of dressing up as Santa to deliver presents to the children. Pardo parked in the neighbor's driveway, his disguise allowing him to blend in without raising suspicion. As soon as entering the house, he shot little Katrina first. Then he turned his guns on the family members around the poker table, firing until running out of ammo. But what was inside the large, gift-wrapped box Pardo brought that caused the house to go up in flames so quickly? Turned out it was a homemade pressurized flamethrower, filled with jet fuel, designed for one purpose: to burn the house down in the most brutal way possible. Pardo was a very intelligent man. He put a lot of thought into this plan, Doonan explained. But in his cold calculations, there was one thing he hadn't accounted for: an open flame inside the house. When the highly flammable jet fuel accidentally ignited, the explosion tore through the living room while Bruce was still inside. In an instant, fire consumed the Ortega home, trapping many of the victims and Bruce himself in a blazing inferno. But somehow, Bruce survived and got out. Badly burned but still mobile, he managed to strip off his melting Santa suit, change into fresh clothes, and escape in his car. The coroner's autopsy results also provided a horrifying glimpse into his injuries. Bruce suffered third-degree burns on both arms, and the most grotesque detail: A part of the Santa suit had melted into his skin, fusing with his flesh. It was a scene straight out of a horror film. In excruciating pain and severely injured, he fled the scene and drove 40 miles in a rented blue Dodge Caliber, arriving at his brother's empty house. Breaking in, he locked himself inside. Hours later, at around 3:10 a.m., he was found dead from a gunshot wound to the head. But there was one thing that didn't sit right with Lieutenant Doonan. The evidence found at Brad Pardo's house still suggested murder. The bullet holes, the pistol on the floor, it all pointed to something more than just a suicide. And then there was the strangest detail. Over $17,000 strapped to Bruce's body. Why would a man who planned such destruction carry that much cash? Hoping to uncover more clues, Doonan instructed his team to track down every vehicle registered in Bruce's name. Within the hour, they found a rental vehicle, registered under Bruce, parked quietly in a residential neighborhood. Inside, it was stocked with gas tanks and a laptop. Immediately fearing another booby trap, Doonan ordered a grid search of the entire area. Officers canvassed the neighborhood, questioning residents and scouring for any hidden threats. After the bomb squad carefully inspected the vehicle and confirmed it wasn't rigged to explode, detectives conducted a thorough search. Inside the car, they found maps, clothes, food, and water, everything needed for a long escape. It became clear this was Bruce's backup getaway vehicle. But its location was no coincidence. The car was parked just 500 feet from the home of Scott Nord, Sylvia Ortega's attorney, the man who had helped finalize the divorce just days before the massacre. That led to a chilling realization. Bruce hadn't intended to stop with the Ortegas. Had things gone according to plan, Scott Nord might have been the next target. Lieutenant Doonan decided to pay him a visit, and in the interview, Nord revealed a dark secret from Bruce Pardo's past, a secret that had led to the collapse of his marriage with Sylvia. After Bruce's knee injury, Sylvia began noticing inconsistencies while filling out his tax returns. That's when she uncovered the truth. Bruce had a secret son from a previous relationship, something he had never mentioned to her. As the story unfolded, Nord had spoken with Bruce's ex-girlfriend, the mother of his child. She revealed that 3 years before Bruce met Sylvia, his ex had left their 13-month-old son Matthew in his care while she went out to run errands. When she returned, she found Bruce sitting exactly where she left him, beer in hand, glued to the TV. But Matthew was missing. Frantically searching the house, they found him floating in the pool. Though Matthew survived, the lack of oxygen left him with severe lifelong brain damage. He was now wheelchair-bound, unable to care for himself. Instead of taking responsibility, Bruce walked away. He abandoned his son and his ex-girlfriend, never looking back. The only connection he had with Matthew was the child support payments he was forced to make by social services. There was no love, no concern, just a legal obligation he resented. For Sylvia, this revelation was terrifying. She had 3 children of her own, and now she realized the man she married, the man she trusted, had a past of neglect and abandonment. A man who had once left a child to drown and then disappeared from his life. If he could walk away from his own child, what else was he capable of? Lieutenant Doonan finally had the whole truth. And when the coroner's final report came in, it revealed the last missing piece, how Bruce Pardo met his end. After escaping the blazing inferno that consumed the Ortega family home, Bruce, horribly burned and in immense agony, abandoned his original plan to kill Sylvia's divorce attorney. Instead, he drove to his brother Brad's house. After forcing his way inside, Bruce dropped his first pistol in the living room. Gunshots were fired into the walls, possibly out of frustration, or perhaps because his severe hurt made it nearly impossible to aim the gun at himself. But eventually, he succeeded. We don't believe he ever intended to end his life until he realized there was no escape from the pain, Doonan explained. The cruelty of the event was enough to haunt everyone for life, but nothing could compare to the shock of the final revelation. Pardo wasn't just targeting his ex-wife's family, he planned to kill his own mom. Investigators discovered that Pardo knew his mother had been invited to the Christmas Eve celebration. His anger toward her ran deep, as he believed she had betrayed him by siding with Sylvia during their divorce proceedings. However, His mother had stayed home that night because she wasn't feeling well, a decision that ultimately saved her life. If everything had gone according to Bruce's plan, we could have been looking at a body count of 30 people or more. Doonan reflected grimly. With the survivors in recovery, Bruce's secrets exposed, and every dark truth brought to light, Doonan officially closed the case within days. But the weight of the tragedy was immense, and this case always stood apart for him. "This is the most compelling story I've ever been involved in. It was pure damn evil," he admitted. In the wake of such profound loss, the Covina community came together to support the Ortega family. Vigils and memorial services were held across the city to honor the victims and offer comfort to the grieving survivors. More than 1,500 people attended the Ortega family's funeral at the Holy Name of Mary Catholic Church in San Dimas. The victims were later laid to rest in private ceremonies at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Covina, the town they once called home. For the surviving members of the Ortega family, the pain was immeasurable. The emotional scars left behind were deep, and the trauma of that night would haunt them for years to come. But the Ortegas refused to let themselves be defeated. They had already lost too much. They would not lose their strength, their hope, or their future. Leading the way was Sal, Sylvia's son, who faced his grief head-on, drawing strength from the values his mother had instilled in him.
My mom taught me that no matter what happens, if you have faith and you just persevere and stay strong, you can always come out in the end. He tried to destroy our family, but what he didn't know was just our faith, and faith just can't be destroyed.
Leticia Ortega also had a choice to make. She could let sorrow and grief consume her, or she could find a way to rise above it and heal. By embracing a positive outlook, acknowledging the pain, yet refusing to be defined by it, Leticia set an example for the others. She adopted 6-year-old Amanda, Sylvia's youngest daughter. Not only dealing with her own trauma, she was carrying her niece, her kids, and all of the family through the tragedy.
Kids are so resilient. So me being an example of security and love, I needed to provide that for them. I needed to be the example and show them that, yes, we're sad, we're hurt, but we're going to be okay.
Katrina, the once 8-year-old girl who was shot in the face, also found her own way to turn the pain into purpose. On February 14, 2018, a gunman opened fire at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, killing 17 students and staff members. This was an event that resonated deeply with the Ortegas. Katrina, now 17, was brought face-to-face with the horror she had survived nearly a decade earlier. She became a passionate advocate for gun violence prevention, joining forces with survivors of other mass shootings and student activists to protest in Pasadena. During a nationwide school walkout, Katrina stood in front of her classmates and read aloud the names of the 17 victims whose lives cut short in a senseless act of violence. Her voice, along with others, became a powerful symbol of resilience, shedding light on the urgent need for change. Their advocacy work brought national attention to the pressing issues of gun control and domestic violence. By sharing their heartbreaking experiences, they sought to raise awareness and push for meaningful reforms.
I just knew I had to keep fighting, and I knew I would live my life to the fullest for each one of my family members and everybody affected by gun violence.
At home, Katrina followed the example set by her mother, Leticia. Year after year, Christmas Eve loomed as a painful reminder of what was lost. But Katrina refused to let it define her. Instead, she chose to see the holiday as a beacon of light. Christmas time has become something beautiful again. It's something my family continues to celebrate instead of mourn. We honor the ones we lost by choosing to live. Katrina said proudly. Whether it's Leticia, Sal, Katrina, or any other survivor, the Ortegas have found a way to carry their pain forward. Not as a weight, but as fuel to honor their loved ones and make the world a better place. A world their family would be proud of. In the end, this case was a stark reminder of how hatred and anger can transform a man into a monster, affecting not just those involved, but entire communities. But it also teaches us a powerful lesson. No matter how deep the darkness, there is always a choice to rise above it, to unite, and to inspire others. What are your thoughts on this tragedy? Let us know in the comments below. And if there's another case you'd like us to cover, Feel free to drop your suggestion. Until next time, take care.